Welcome to Sanctum. You're listening to The 100 Podcast, a show about CW's sci-fi series, The 100. I'm Dan, your alpha man, and today I'm joined by my one crew warrior, Olga.
Hey everybody, today we're discussing Season 6, Episode 3, entitled Children of Gabriel.
The Children of Gabriel.
That's what I said. I don't know what you heard. Don't play it back.
So this is a video and audio podcast, so if you're watching it on video at youtube.com/doingok, welcome. If you're listening on audio devices around the world, welcome too. And if you want to switch between the two, there's links in the description.
Don't know why you'd want to do that, but
well, if you're
sure.
watching the video and hey, I could be listening with my ears only, that's something you could do.
They look hideous. I don't need this information.
So, what are you thinking about this here episode?
Well, that was a lot of information.
Yeah, a lot of things occurred in that episode.
Yeah.
Big mythology episode.
Yes.
I'd say more plot driven than character driven overall.
Absolutely. Even though it had the introduction of new characters, it's not really there's not too much about getting us
it's
to
putting
really
the pieces on the board.
Yeah. Information. It really was about information.
Yeah, and it's cool information.
It's fascinating.
It's going to take a lot to digest, I think. I'd say as far as, because we're talking about character, as far as a standout character moment, to me, it would be Bellamy leaving Octavia behind.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty intense.
I'm sure there are people who are mad at Bellamy for doing that, but I feel like it's in line with how he's been acting this season so far.
Yeah.
In regards to his sister.
Yeah, and I think I'm excited to see what they do with her separated with this other group.
Absolutely.
I mean, we talked a little about when we were doing a trailer breakdown. I'm like, is this just going to be and she met the Grounders. It's Octavia and the Grounders again.
Yeah. We did bring that up.
Yeah, but there's definitely, it's not the thing is, there's a lot of things that are reminiscent of past stuff, but with a new twist. So obviously they even bring up themselves, Mount Weather, in this episode, right? And
freaking Jordan. Jordan, you don't get in a girl's pants by telling her war crime stories that your aunt that you just met.
Yeah, I mean, don't you have the story of, hey, I was raised by my parents and I never met anyone else? That's
I grew up eating algae for 20 years.
I mean, maybe
something.
He didn't want to seem too weird.
I think
so. He didn't want to talk about himself. Talk
too
about
late.
Murphy or something.
Yeah, the fact that he's murderous is obvious. He has all those slash marks, and everyone saw the snake.
Yeah.
So the snake was cool.
Yeah. They used in a positive way, which I did not see coming.
Subverting expectations.
I like that, and I'm glad also that Murphy's doing okay physically. Obviously, mentally not so much. But I was a little worried we'd be like, "What's up with Murphy?" for a while.
Man, they really in this episode are bringing up more of facing your demons. The tagline again as a reminder of Murphy faced some kind of demons. He thought he went to hell. Those could have been himself, his last brain cells going off.
Yeah.
Maddie, she's afraid of the shadow Hedda.
Yes, the shadow. There was a better word for it. I think.
I thought it was shadow Hedda.
It was.
I hope there's a better word.
I thought it was slightly different than that. I thought
on rewatch, I will know this information.
Yeah, this is the thing. We just watched the episode.
We just watched it once. Yeah, but the point is that she's afraid of this past demon commander before. And just, Clark also having to face what she did at Mount Weather again in her past.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about how it connects, but is also different, right? So we have, again, it's she's coming into this new place where she's a little... The thing that's interesting is she's a little bit apprehensive about it, but in this case, unlike Mount Weather, she's we need to make this work, right? So before she was I'm out of here, this is bullshit. She's I don't know what's going on. Don't tell them everything, but we need to make this work.
Yeah, I mean, in this case, it was more about... Well, also Mount Weather was welcoming to them.
Yeah, that's true.
Overall, but these people are the opposite. I mean, they are, but with, a tinge.
Yeah. Well, it's just interesting because it's the idea that, we have her coming to this big banquet, very similar to Dante and everything. And I'd even say Russell and Dante are semi-similar-ish characters. But the difference being that, Mount Weather didn't really have a culture. It was just us, right?
It was frozen in a typical 21st century way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, ooh, I want to learn more. Like, we wanted to learn what the experiments they were doing.
Right.
But I didn't necessarily want to learn about the mountain men as a society,
because
right?
it felt more like the monsters are us.
Yeah.
It's really like you pluck any person, they're wearing normal person clothes, like just regular jeans and khakis and button-ups and just cardigans, like nothing scary about a cardigan.
Well, I don't know who's wearing the cardigan.
The equivalent of a murderous Mr. Rogers.
I'd like to see Octavia wearing a cardigan.
She would like pull the sleeves off.
Yeah, but I think that I'm definitely intrigued by the culture. And so let's talk about basically what we're reading is that the primes are kept alive in perpetuity. Their minds are injected into the hosts who are...
This is our theory, to be clear.
I don't even know theory. My current interpretation of what they're telling us.
That you have to be a Nightblood.
Yeah, so basically, like they said, so the primes were all Nightbloods because they were injected by Becca before they left, but then it only goes hereditarily, it only goes through certain people.
Much like it did on Earth among the Grounders.
So then you have this idea of hereditarily... you have like the hosts who are like the royal blood, right? And we are assuming put the prime's consciousness into their head and they are taken over and it's like a religious experience. And
that's why they're so like worshipped among their things, even the way it's like, hallowed be thy name. Like you're not allowed to take their name in vain, the way that Simone, the wife of Russell, was like, don't you dare insult my husband. And he was like, oh, how would they know our traditions? And it's like, well, they are both like, what's the word? We brought it up a lot before of how Octavia used to be seen as this like deity emperor, like a god king. Yeah. That's kind of how this group is seemingly interpreting that.
It's also, I wonder, I mean, we'll see, but I can't help but think about how we like worship the founders of the United States and like worship, quote unquote, but like, how we like really evangelize. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but you know what I mean?
Take it, like their word is law.
Yeah, like we put a lot of stock into them and their thoughts, even though they were just people and the Constitution is fallible and all that stuff. But it's sort of that to the ultimate extreme. And so it's sort of the idea we're assuming is that it's an evolution of what happens with Maddie in the chip, and it's similar technology. It's Becca technology of being able to take the consciousness and put it directly into another person. Whereas Maddie has them like in the background.
And is learning about how to... Guy is literally teaching Maddie in this episode how to just kind of learn to interpret their voices and their advice and have them guide her, but still make her own decisions from that, basically. Yeah. And these people, I think, are doing the opposite, which is being like taken over by these shadow past selves.
Yeah, so the thing that's interesting about that is... we talked about maybe is Russell actually Josephine's dad that we saw in the flashback.
Yeah, Papa Lightborn, who was only, not credited with a first name.
Did you check that?
I did.
Okay. So
on IMDb as of Sunday.
Okay. So the thing that's interesting about that is I'm thinking he would make a lot of sense. What if he is like Murphy and he believes in hell, right? And he is like, I can't
let himself
die because if I die, I'm going to hell because I killed all these people.
That would be interesting.
And so to me, that is like a combination of him. He said he was like starting to believe in God and stuff. And the combination of that and the psychosis and then the PTSD from the psychosis and the murder, he's sort of combining the science aspect that he had and that he had from Becca with the religious psychosis.
And maybe the reason that Simone is just like a wife and not also a deity is because before the chip technology was invented, he'd already killed his wife.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So
before he could like take the consciousness.
Is Simone a light? Wait, what is Simone's last name? Did I say it?
I don't.
Simone is Russell's wife.
Simone is Russell's wife, who's by him and defending him and being very rude to Clark. Fair-ish,
Yeah.
but rude.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she doesn't seem to be a Lightborn in the traditional sense.
Yeah, there's going to be so much to pick apart when we rewatch and keep all the specifics of, like all the lines of dialogue. And I mean, that reminds me, so we haven't really talked about the Children of Gabriel here, right?
Right.
And they seem to be...
The demon Gabriel.
Yeah. And they have the whole line about like death is life or something to that.
Yeah.
And so there's something seemingly there. I mean, obviously they try to capture the host. They're trying to end the primes. Maybe they're like, we need a fresh start.
So if Gabriel, it's saying, it was thanks to him. Also, when they say his name, everyone hisses. That was freaky. Not a very nice welcome for our people to be like, why is this group of people hissing towards us? But he was a geneticist. So this whole idea of maybe him disapproving of these actions of maintaining...
Oh, Gabriel was someone we saw last week?
Yeah, he was Josephine's boyfriend.
Oh, I totally forgot. That's awesome. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, I was like, oh, Dan isn't mentioning this. I'll mention it. Yeah, that's Gabriel, the scientist.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting. All right.
Everyone on board now?
Yeah.
Everyone on the same page? Cool.
Totally forgot.
Anyway.
That. Yeah, he was the one taking pictures last week.
Yeah.
And boning down.
And about to bone down. Yeah. And then he got away on the motorcycle.
Yeah.
Or something, or their motor scooter.
Yeah. It's a motorcycle.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, that these are his children. So it's kind of this thing of, he's the geneticist and he brought is in charge, I assume, of the embryos, and him maybe having a philosophical disagreement, moral disagreement with the other, Papa Lightborn, as we'll call him shorthand, that now his descendants are so disapproving maybe of the actions of like passing on consciousness, that's not fair. So his descendants / followers are the exiles.
Well,
from
also maybe there's a science versus religion aspect here. If the Children of Gabriel all embryo made, all scientifically made, and everyone in Sanctum are natural births.
Yes, and maybe that's where it's like the intermingling of the blood of the primes with some embryos or whatever is why it's like rare to have night blood.
I don't know. I don't think anyone in Sanctum is made by an embryo because they say
that's not enough people. There were only 4 families that were brought that were the primes.
While.
That's some freaking inbreeding right there.
I mean, I think that's going to be part of the problem. Because I think that none of the embryos will have night blood, and that's part of why they're not allowed in. Because all of them are red bloods.
That's a hell of a theory.
I mean that's my assumption. I mean maybe there's some.
It's a bit far.
I mean there could be. I guess it seems to make so much sense, right? That it's like he's the geneticist. He's the one who talked to the embryos, his children, and then we have the children of the primes.
There is one thing that we're
years.
Yes, but there is one thing that we're not entertaining, and that's that the Children of Gabriel are a more recent splitting off faction.
What are you basing that on?
Basing that off of how they were basically saying that Sanctum is our home too. So it could also be this thing of at one point their ancestors were also in Sanctum, and then there was a bigger another philosophical split. And the time and belief has now like actually turned Gabriel really into this demon. And for them, their leader. Yeah. For like one group demon, another group leader.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, the timeline, it seems very unclear right now.
Also, it's like 7 generations, they said. Yeah. So 7 generations, 200 years, that tracks.
So, I mean, but the thing as far as you, like, them saying, oh, Sanctum is our home too, that doesn't have to be literal. That they don't have to have ever actually lived there. That could be
also, if the moon is Sanctum now. Not just the actual dome.
Yeah, no, but they were specifically talking about...
They were.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so confused by this. Like, is Sanctum a place or the...
I think now they're saying Sanctum is the compound and Alpha is the bigger... I mean, it's a little confusing, but I assume that they're saying Sanctum's our home in the way that, like, Jewish people say Israel is our home.
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah, I could see that.
But
that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's just a guess. It could have been more recent, but I feel like they're pretty like in their ways. But at the same time, how bad can it be outside of the fence if they've been living outside of the fence for that long?
Well, it's like they know how to manipulate the trees, but the people from within, they know that the trees eat people.
Yeah.
So that was literal.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. It's a hostile planet.
Yeah. Very fascinating. I guess my question to you is, how do you feel about how tied in everything is to our past, as far as like, so not talking about repeating things, but more talking about like, oh, once again, I mean, I guess it is repeating things, but but again, like the idea of, oh, Nightbloods are still an important thing here. People with Nightbloods are still worshipped. We're still talking about like a version of the chip, and
it's exactly what I didn't want going into this season.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about that at one point. Yeah. I don't know if it was on a podcast or just between the two of us. But because the 100 is just our life. Basically, I'm not a huge fan of the fact that like Becca really did spawn all of this, and it's the same here, and it's the same here, and Nightbloods are still so important. And the fact now that again, we haven't seen proof of it, but pretty certain that this some kind of chip technology is going to be playing a part both religiously and memory-wise in both of these cultures. It makes sense, but yeah, I mean, it feels like they're repeating themselves.
Best case scenario for me, Becca didn't invent the technology for the primes. Somebody used her Nightblood, yes, but somebody else, not Gabriel, Russell or whoever Papa Lightborn was, modified or created. Like,
don't get me, I believe it's modified, but at the same time, maybe made more powerful to handle just a implantation of a consciousness. But at the same time, I mean, the first thing we saw of them in the town is flags with Becca's insignia, and that was printed on the chip. So
it's just, I do agree. I mean, this is why I've jokingly talked about how I don't want a Becca.
You've said it in literally everything of our
So she spawned two different religions now just by like having a special blood thing. Like, I mean, I do like that it's different. They're not worshiping them as like, they're not worshiping them as gods, really. They're worshiping more as like, you
Saints.
Are. Yeah, maybe, but it's more like you are the next in the line to be taken over. Like, to me, it's different enough that I'm still interested, and I'm also interested in like I don't think Josephine, the character that we saw of Josephine, I don't think would want to still be taking over people's brains and stuff like that. So like, where does that fit in?
That's a good point.
Like, would all of these people be okay taking over other people's brains? And we're also assuming that they fully take over as opposed to sharing. I hope that they don't share, because then it's like it's way too much like the chip.
Yeah, I want it to be more intense also.
Yeah.
Because it also has to be something that actually gives the Children of Gabriel a reason to want to like kill the primes.
Yeah.
So it has to be something like actually kind of evil, which is maybe taking over someone's will and consciousness.
I mean, I think that it could certainly, think about it, if Russell is Papa Lightborn and he's basically been in charge for 200 years, it's like, it could just be like, it's time for a new order. Like, we've had the same
that's what they were
despot
saying of
for
like
200
pissing
years.
off the old man.
Yeah, exactly.
The old man.
Yeah.
That Russell ain't that old. Well, the body ain't that old. He's just got some salt and pepper.
Yeah. One question I have is, so we're talking about this idea of the hosts and taking it over and everything. How do you think that might tie into facing your demons? And like, what maybe do you think that maybe the way that the prime takes over your mind is by like making you deal with stuff you can't handle, and then you like end up crippled down in your demon thing or something?
What if it's very Get Out and you're like suppressed in there facing your memories as if they were like demon clone versions of yourself? I mean, if the whole poster imagery is Clark facing against Clark, and Josephine is similar looking to Clark, so I could see that also being like Josephine versus Clark kind of, but it is her versus her. And that way it's like they brought up Juan Heda. Bellamy brought up how Blood Reyna killed his sister, and his sister has been dead for a long time. Memory.
So it's
self, clone.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking for a while, ever since basically since Conageddon, when everybody was talking about how Eliza did such an amazing job this season and it showed us stuff that we'd never seen before and they were just blown away. I mean, my first thought was she's playing not just Clark. She's playing another character.
She's playing Josephine in Clark.
Yeah. That is my assumption. I mean, the alternative can just be that playing two different versions of Clark at the same time, that's pretty difficult too.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling at some point Josephine's in there.
At this point, I have the same theory.
I just am confused as to how Josephine, the character we saw of Josephine, would want that. Unless it's that, like, she got her. I wonder if also, like, their brains or their consciousness have been, like, corrupted with time. Like, think about it. If you keep putting them into new places, think about even when you,
the chip gets corrupted.
Like, it's being, like, overly compressed over multiple, like, first it's on Twitter, then it goes on Facebook, then it goes on YouTube.
Then it gets reposted to Instagram, last place it goes. Yeah. Well, it's this, I mean, the chip that Maddie has isn't getting corrupted.
Yeah, but
if it's
maybe
been
that
modified.
maybe this is made by Becca, who's a perfect person, versus this other technology that's made by Papa Lightborn.
Something I just remembered is that his daughter died 6 years ago. So if she was meant to be a Nightblood, and was meant to become Josephine, now he's actually looking for a Josephine. So we keep saying that Clark is going to receive her. Well, what if Maddie does? Because age-wise, maybe.
Well, but I think what it is, so they talk about naming day, and it wasn't going to be Rose's naming day. It was going to be Delilah, was her name?
Well, both of them, I think.
No, I think it was just Delilah. Because
Delilah was becoming Priya, I want to say.
The reason I mean, I might be wrong here.
Okay.
But I thought it was just her because she was talking about, like, now that I've come of age, I've been waiting for this day. I think when you get to a certain age, that's when you're able to take it. I think Rose was being held for later.
For the future.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I might be wrong.
Yeah. Again, you'll just have to find our full-length podcast out on Sundays.
Yeah. But it was a good catch to be like, oh, yeah, his daughter. And they were like, you would be more upset if it was your daughter that was going to be,
kidnapped.
So, like, yeah, he does care about his daughter, but he's not the day yet for his daughter. They don't have a
host for her yet.
Yeah.
Clark.
Yeah. So, interesting stuff.
Doesn't Clark want a pet dog?
And I also want to think about, like, the stuff they talked about with his father killing his little sister and all. His father, the dog, killing the little sister. Was that on Earth?
I mean, at this point, if it's Papa Lightborn.
Oh, I just thought of something. Sorry.
Go for it.
So they talked at the end of last episode about, are you here to take us home? And so if they think about it as far as the Primes actually lived on Earth. So Earth is home.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Although you could, again, an ancestral home is still seen as home. And especially if not everyone is capable of taking on and being of royal blood, they still want to go home too. Yeah. I don't know.
But also Rose was the one who said it.
She did.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, I think there's something there. So I'm excited to see what's up with the Children of Gabriel and all this stuff. Honestly, even though I do think that maybe it's tied too much in with other stuff, I'm still really excited about this group of new people, this new place, and the new mysteries, Yep. Overall, what do you think?
And that it was a good episode. Yeah. I'm always a bigger fan of character episodes than plot episodes. Yeah. But I mean, you can't have one without the other. Yeah. So.
Well, I'm excited to rewatch it for our podcast where we do our full review of the episode. It goes up Sunday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's just an audio podcast. So if you want to follow the audio podcast, there are going to be links down below the YouTube video. Also, you can go to the100podcast.com. There's a subscribe thing there if you want to find all the ways to subscribe to the podcast, including Spotify now. There's also a contact us form there that you can use to leave us feedback that we can include in that longer podcast. You can also comment down below on YouTube and we'll read some of those comments. Thank you guys so much for watching/listening, and may we meet again.
May we meet again.